Well, I can tell you that my next guest has been responsible for bringing the gospel of Jesus Christ over the radio airwaves now for over 50 years at a blowtorch of a radio station covering Western New York and Southern Ontario, WDCX in Buffalo, and celebrating his 50th year with that organization and in broadcasting is Nev Larson. Nev, welcome.
Thank you, John. Good to be with you.
Full disclosure, we've been friends going back to about 1993. And one of the nicest things you ever did for me when I was pastoring at People's Church, we had David Jeremiah, who was kind of well known, not as he was today. This was 23, 24 years ago. I had David come in and speak on a Monday night and a Tuesday night for a Founders Week at People's Church. And I asked you if you would have him interviewed with a WDCX audience so we could promote him being there, let people know. And man, the response was great. And we've had a relationship ever since that.
Yeah. I can remember coming to People's with you with Steve Brown, too.
Yes, that's right.
Who was just a little bit off center.
Just a little bit, yeah.
And, Steve has a great sense of humor.
Oh, yeah, and the Key Life Radio Network, and what a voice.
Wow.
What a voice that man has. Congratulations.
Well, thank you.
This is quite an accomplishment. You don't see this much anymore, 50 years in one spot, if you will.
Yeah.
I'm sure the geography may have moved within Buffalo. But let's go back. WDCX started in the early to mid-60s?
1963 we went on the air.
Yeah. And were you an announcer? Were you sales?
Actually, I came to them, and I had heard about the station a bit, and it was just getting off the ground at that time, and I came in 1966. Actually, I was a high school teacher, and but had done some radio stuff and a lot of singing around, and caught an interest in the fact that Christian radio had come to Buffalo,
and still kind of in its infancy.
Oh yeah, it was just getting started. We were only going part of the day at that time, and I came in and started an afternoon show, and worked did an afternoon live show from 4 to 7 at night, and then worked till midnight, and went home, got a few hours sleep, and went to school and taught the next day.
And then went to the station.
And went to the station right after school at 4 o'clock, and did that for several years because the station at that point couldn't afford to support my wife and I.
So Buffalo, not like a Dallas, Texas, or Atlanta, Georgia, not the hotbed of evangelicalism, and then as well Southern Ontario, not that either. And so here you are creating really a new market, uncovering Christ followers who are being able to find a place now where I'm guessing back then you maybe had radio Bible class or
theater rep,
J. Vernon McGee, Back to the Bible, that's right, and then later Wiersbe. Those were the early shows.
Yeah, and they've transitioned over the years. They've gone to glory, many of them.
Yeah.
But then the next generation came, the David Jeremiahs and the Steve Browns that we talked about, and others. And we'll pass too.
That's right.
David and I are just a few months apart in age, but God always brings the men along to do the job.
Well, now, Nev, an interesting thing from a Canadian perspective and an Ontario perspective is that there was this audience of Christ followers that was in this country that did not have, might have had a Christian program on a secular station, but there were no Christian radio stations. There were CRTC prohibitions there. And so how long did it take you to figure out, you're getting some phone calls from across the water and across the border saying, hey, we like this?
One of the early things I did that I knew we had to do was contact pastors. And if you recall back in those days, churches, we actually had Sunday evening services.
That's right, yeah.
And we started a program called the Sunday Night Sing. And we started going, and I had recorded a couple albums and did singing back then. And so we started, and we would do about 35 Sunday nights a year in different churches and throughout Southern Ontario and Western New York, and just to get the word out because nobody knew we existed when we started, and we had to let them know somehow.
So you came across the border and have some Sunday night sings?
All the time, all the time.
So promoted the station, let people know. Then later on, it got more sophisticated. You started developing some sales strategies or marketing strategies, intentionally targeting the Ontario Christian audience.
Well, there's such Toronto, as you know.
Yeah.
If Toronto was on our side of the border, it would be the 4th largest market in the country.
That's right.
And so it's just such a great market. There's so many people, and we have so many great listeners in this area.
And you have Canadian broadcasters that buy time on your station. Yeah, some of them that
People's
are present.
Church. Yeah. Charles
Price.
Charles Price been on with us for a long time.
Right.
And there are a number like that, as well as great advertisers who do it. And there are a lot of connections with the U.S. broadcasters, like a David Jeremiah, who comes to Toronto, was in Toronto, 2 years ago, I think.
Not too long ago, and filled up Air Canada Center,
about 10, 11,000 people.
Right. Yeah, it's amazing. So let's talk about, as on your journey, your son, I think, started becoming interested as well. What is his story? Brett, right? Brett came on the scene, and kind of talk about how that started and what he's doing now. And this is fun.
Yeah, this has been great. Brett went to Liberty University, was going to get a degree in business administration. And in his junior year, one day, I got a call from him, and he said, "Dad, would it be really bad for me if I was to change my program to communications and broadcasting?"
I don't think that'd be too bad.
And I said, you make that decision, not based on me, but you make it. And of course, your heart is saying, "Go, boy," And so he did. He graduated with that degree, came to work at the radio station, and I said, "Well, the hardest job there is in commercial sales." And so we put him out in commercial sales, and he did great. And that's almost 18 years ago. And he's moved on up, and now is general manager of our station stuff there. And this old guy has stepped back a bit. Still full-time, maybe not as full as it used to be, but still full-time.
And you, like David Maines, through television, you have watched technology change in radio. It's amazing now, because, I remember my dad used to have a little radio program in the South called the Back to Bethel Hour, and I can remember when there was reel-to-reel, and he'd have those big cases, with the straps, and he'd mail them. We'd go to and put them in bulk mail at the post office, and then he went to cassettes. And then toward the end of his time, when he was broadcaster, it was all being shot up and shot down, either that through emails or some other satellite.
Tapes and reel records, remember reel records? Microphones with cords, things like that. But,
I remember having to cue those records before you flip the switch on the
turnstile. We thought it was great when we went to cart machines.
That's right.
And now, of course, you don't even play CDs or anything. Everything's already in a hard drive.
Let's talk about WDCX in Buffalo. I think one of the things that you did and do is you really created an audience there, not only with great Bible teaching and music and guests and all that, but you brought issues and continue to bring issues to Christ followers that's important to them, things that come out of Washington or controversial issues, and you'll have folks clarify, and then sometimes you'll be able to mobilize, which is more typically an American thing, if you will, on the political side than on the Canadian Christian side. But you've done that well in Buffalo.
Well, we get together even as Christians, and we're concerned about many issues. Issues that are happening today.
Right.
And as you and I know, there's so much craziness going on out there, and we talk about it. So.
And the news cycle is so fast, isn't it? One headline just is there, and then it's gone because of a bigger story.
And those become real issues in our lives.
Yeah.
And so, to just shun away and just to do Bible teaching after Bible teaching, and not bring it to real life. Is not good for people. We need to let them hear what the real stories are.
You guys have done a beautiful job there and continue to. Just share with me in final moments here, what's the future for broadcasting, for WDCX, for Southern Ontario, for Western New York, Buffalo, Toronto?
Southern Ontario, of course, really is our biggest audience, Toronto and Southern Ontario, as well as all of Western New York. But just a year and a half, 2 years ago, we realized that we were missing some of the old signal that we had, because there are more signals on the air now, to the west of Toronto, in a Hamilton kind of area.
Yes.
And so we
purchased a lot of people, Burlington, Hamilton.
Yeah. And so we purchased an AM station, AM 970 in Buffalo, which was the NPR station,
National
Public Radio, because it covers some of that area. And then we also have a station in Rochester, New York, which Rochester is probably a market of close to 1 million people.
Right.
And so, you know, we've expanded in that way too. We're part of Crawford Broadcasting Company.
Which is your CBC. We have a different CBC.
Yeah, there's
here,
different
but
CBC.
CBC with you as the Crawford
Broadcasting Company. We
How
have
many stations? I'm sorry.
24 stations across the country. And that's where I've been allowed to play a little bit more now with some of our other stations in major markets, Detroit, Chicago, LA, San Francisco, all those markets.
You have such an amazing reputation. I've been with you at NRB. I know broadcasters that buy time on your station. I've had an opportunity to do some commentary there from time to time. You have always been very generous to people. And it's just a joy to say congratulations.
Well,
thank you for decades of sowing great seed, and congratulations on this harvest of celebration. And we have members of your family here too, and we're so happy about it.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
that.
Come back and see us at.
We'll do it
before year 55.
Another 50?
55. Let's do it. All right. Come back again, Nev. God bless you.
Appreciate you, brother.
Nev Larson, he is the man. 50 years at WDCX, Crawford Broadcasting Company. An amazing story. A great example to all of us who want to make a difference via the airwaves and technology.